Hello and welcome to Truth, Lies and Work. What you're about to hear is from one of our recent LinkedIn Lives, a live panel discussion where we dig into the big questions shaping modern work. If you'd like to join us for the next one, just search for Leanne Elliott, that's me, on LinkedIn and hit follow. We announced them there first and we obviously launched them there first. Right, let's go into it after a quick message from our lovely sponsors. Hello, everyone. We are live. If we've been live for the last minute or so, you would have seen us going, I don't think we're live. Are we live? I'm not sure. But now we know we are. Welcome. This is Truth, Lies and Work Live. If you've not heard of Truth, Lies and Work before, we are the award-winning podcast where behavioural science meets workplace culture. We are brought to you by the HubSpot Podcast Network, the audio destination for business professionals. My name is Leanne. I'm a chartered occupational psychologist.
My name is Al. I'm a business owner.
And together we help you simplify the science of work. And tonight, we're doing something a little bit different. So we have done a live before, so I guess it's not that different, but I'm not sure we've ever had this many panelists before. So it's very exciting. I'm going to introduce you to them all. And tonight we are talking about something that is kind of hard to ignore at the minute. The last few years has been so disruptive for work. The changes we've seen are just, unprecedented. Layoffs are rising. AI is reshaping entire industries, and careers that once felt quite stable don't really feel so certain anymore. And then alongside that, something else has been happening. A lot of people are starting to question whether the careers they've built still fit who they are today. For some, that change has been forced through layoffs. For others, it's been a more internal process, a growing sense that the career path they are on no longer makes sense. So tonight, we're asking a pretty simple question. Are we entering a great career reset? Now, to help us do that, we have got three brilliant guest panelists. We are joined by Ugwuala. Che is global lead for Andrew marketing strategy at Google and a creator on LinkedIn. A brilliant one. You need to follow him immediately if you're not already. He explores careers, ambition, and the realities of modern professional life. And Che, of course, brings a perspective from inside one of the world's largest technology companies, while also speaking candidly about career growth, pressure, and identity at work. We are also joined by Kelly Garthwaite. Kelly is a former Red Bull Media House leader turned founder and podcast host. That's what we like to see. Kelly stepped away from a successful corporate career to build her own ventures and now co-hosts The Naked Room, a podcast focused on honest conversations about the human experience, reinvention, and personal growth. And our third panelist is Erica Breuer. Regular listeners will recognize Erica. She has been on the show before. Erica is a creative and go-to-market strategist working at the intersection of culture, creativity, and strategy. Erica is known for bringing people together to explore ideas, challenge assumptions, and rethink how we approach work, creativity, and collaboration. Welcome, everyone.
Hello.
Yay.
What an intro. Oh my gosh.
I think that's, can I steal that? I feel like that's the best intro I've ever gotten.
I know, me too. Thank you.
Thank you.
Absolutely steal it, of course. We are so excited to have you here. Throughout the conversation, we're going to be going over to our assistant producer, Georgia, who's keeping an eye on the comments and any questions that come through. So if you are watching live, do ask some questions, have your say. We will come to the comment section through Georgia every 10-15 minutes or so. Let's start simple, though. What do we think has actually changed about work over the last few years? I'm going to put the year as, say, 2020, because I feel that was a temporal landmark for so many of us. Che, I'm going to come to you first. What has actually happened about work? What's changed over the last 5-6 years?
Yeah, I mean, I think without acknowledging the elephant in the room, we did have a global pandemic, right? That I think completely shut everything down and required us to sort of rethink what does work look like for all of us. I know during that time period, I was home with 3 little kids. I had twin girls that were like barely just one. And then I had my son who was about 4 years old. And so trying to juggle both being a parent in real time as well as managing my career in real time and juggling both literally at the same time, um, I think was a lot for a lot of professionals who are probably in a very similar boat. And I think for me, that was probably one the starting point of what would eventually I would say over time create a level of burnout for me that really required me to sort of rethink and reevaluate, like, one, my priorities, both in at home and then also, you know, what I could actually really do at work. And so, um, I definitely say the pandemic was something that definitely helped to, like, reshape and rethink, like, what we think about work. And then I think the other aspect of it as well is just also listening to yourself too to figure out what feels right for you in that moment as well.
And how about you, Erica? Was the pandemic a significant moment for you as well in terms of how you think about your work and career?
It was shortly, maybe 2 or 3 years after the pandemic when I was really thinking about it. I exited the pandemic right into chronic illness. So I didn't have time to think about the state of the world. I had to think about the state of my body and how to get it better. Um, and as those types of experiences tend to make people think, I really started thinking about how I spend my time, how I can direct my energy. And I didn't wanna spend it on things that don't feel good, is the simplest way to say it. And now that we're in this moment where, like, all of the stakes are higher, paths are unstable, and, there's higher expectations about how we show up in our careers than, say, 30, 50 years ago, that if I'm going to subject myself to those pressures of capitalism, the workforce, whatever we wanna put that label on there, well, it better feel good at some point.
Yeah. I mean, is this something that you're seeing as well, Kelly, or something that you've personally felt?
Yeah, I think it was the awareness of how much time I was spending in the car going back and forth to an office. And once that kind of went away, um, I feel like there are a lot of other people who are probably questioning that time spent as well afterwards. And that's why you're seeing this like push me, pull you fight happening between corporate and the employees. Like, I already had this time to be able to decide how I'm going to form my day. So why do I have to go backwards? We've seen that it works okay. I think that one of the biggest takeaways is flexibility. Like, we need to be able to be flexible. If somebody really wants to be in person in the office, then that's great. But then if somebody has kids at home and they really need to be able to spend more time with them, or they have a dog that wants them to be at home, whatever it is, there needs to be that availability for people to choose, because we've seen that it works. We can do it. We don't have to be in this office all the time, you know? So that was a big takeaway for me.
Yeah, I agree. It's this push and pull is really quite aggressive at the moment.
Mm.
Erica, you were mentioning there about how, the deal has changed from 30 years ago in terms of what work is and what's expected of us and demanded from us. We've also got economic pressure. We've also got AI looming. Do you think one of these things is having or had more of an influence, or do you think it's just this perfect storm of change that's really driving people to rethink what work means to them?
I think it's a perfect storm of change. I know my grandparents didn't have to think about passion or purpose. They were happy that working 9 to 5 paid their bills. And then when I entered the workforce, I was supposed to focus on passion and purpose. And really, I think that was a play to help me not focus on the fact that salaries weren't what they needed to be then. They certainly aren't what they need to be now for a great many of the jobs out there. It's the perfect storm. And that's what makes it impossible to ignore the disparities. We were at the end of the spectrum, now we're at the other, and there's just no way to deny what's been happening.
And Che, I'm not sure if I can ask this question, so I'll ask it, and maybe you'll answer around it if you can't so
Sure.
directly. AI, is a massive disruptor, causing a lot of already we're seeing huge amounts of layoffs, a lot of anxiety around how AI is gonna change our value as humans. What's Google's take on this at the minute? How's life at Google feeling in a world of AI? Or maybe around the general, if you
Um, I
fancy.
think I can give my point of view that may not be necessarily the way, you know, that is coming from Google's perspective. I'm just here as Che Guala, and so I think there's a couple things at play. I would say that yes, like I think the fear is real, that people are experiencing this whiplash almost of just like the rise of AI and how that is sort of like um, really sort of rethinking and reshaping how we think about the workplace and then also about job security. And so I don't want to sort of like play that down at all because I think that is a reality that a lot of people are facing. But then I think also on the flip side, I think AI can also just be a very powerful tool, like an incredible change agent, right? And so a lot of what we do within our organization is really become equipped and from like an AI readiness standpoint, like building the tools, building the understanding, building the acumen around leveraging AI and being able to do that in a way that not only like obviously drives more productivity, but then I think also at the same time, like gives me more time back in my life as well. And I think that's a clear balance and one that I'm always trying to strike as well in terms of yes, I have this really cool, amazing tool that I could utilize that allows me to do X amount more things, but I think also the expectations rise as well. And so like how do I balance that out within trying to also maintain like a level of stability for my own life that like work doesn't always become the center of my universe. And so um that's just my personal perspective of it as coming into this as Che Ugwuala, who happens to work for Google.
I had to try, but I respect that. I definitely want to come back to, as you say, what it means when work and identity is so closely intertwined. Before we do, assistant producer Georgia, have we got any comments, any questions so far?
No particular questions right now. I do see quite an interesting statement. 2020 really turned the world on its head, and the freelance community is booming and has been since then. The hustle culture was the beginning of the freelance culture. And that's a comment from Alia Banks.
Yeah, yeah, really inside. I think I was a freelancer just before COVID, and I certainly experienced a definite growth and boom in that. I wonder if it is maybe backtracking now slightly. Going back to that identity, because there's so much wrapped up in it. Is it I'm a psychologist? Am I a freelancer? Am I a culture person? Am I employee engagement? How does that work with my life? Kelly, when the identity that we thought work was giving us just stops fitting with who we are, what does that mean for people?
I've been thinking about this a lot, and I've been talking about it a lot. There is this big reevaluation happening. Maybe it's just the people that I'm surrounding myself with because this is the energy that I'm putting out into the world, but every single conversation I have around career and identity is the same thing. I am wondering what this is what other people are saying to me, and I'm saying this out into the world. I'm wondering what my bigger purpose is and why am I doing this thing? Why am I working for this company that looks at me as a number? And there's obviously exceptions to that, but I think that's kind of the bigger question that keeps coming up is why are we following the status quo when the status quo isn't really like this American dream that we have been wanting to build doesn't really I know, and you all are in the UK, so this is it's like just us here, but all of it is changing so much. And so I think people are just saying, I can't continue going in the same direction that I've been going in if everything around me is changing, if it feels like the whole ground is shifting out from under me. So I always forget like what the question is when I'm answering it. So I hope that I answered it. But yeah, that's kind of that's where my mind goes and all of the conversations I've been having lately.
I think a lot of people would probably say, what are you talking about with purpose? Because we're definitely in a tough market now if you wanted to change jobs, if you wanted to move jobs.
Yeah.
We can't afford to talk about purpose. And this is not directly directed to you, Kelly, it's directed to everyone. But what are your thoughts if an employer comes back and goes, you're lucky to have a job, never mind your purpose?
Yeah, I think that the purpose conversation that's definitely newer. Like Erica was talking about, her grandparents were just happy to have a job and be able to pay the bills. But I think because people aren't staying in their careers for 30 years anymore, that doesn't seem like it's available for the most part. Um, People are looking for something outside of just what they do because it's not really a means to an end in the same way that it used to be.
Erica, you have probably thoughts on this, don't you?
Yeah, I say this as someone who has found very purposeful work. I think a lot of what we're sold as purpose, it's sold to us by the elites, sort of the way we're sold the idea of having a good work ethic. And it's a measuring stick that, I mean, it does feel good for us to have purposeful work or work that we don't dread every single day, but it actually benefits them more than it benefits us to seek that out from employment as opposed to other areas of life.
Che, am I right in thinking you still do Google Geist at Google?
Oh my God, yes, I actually just did my Google Guys just before this podcast, this live. Um,
And how does that feel? I mean, does that give you a bit more of a sense of purpose? I mean, tell us what it's like, because we had Bill Yost on recently, who was one of those people back about 8 years ago who was doing the Google Guys. He was actually like collating all the answers. So tell
yeah.
us, what does it feel like to actually take the Google Guys? Does it? I'm guessing you'll say it's going to be great because you have to, but what's the actual personal experience of it?
Well, just for folks in the audience who may not know what Google Geist is, it's basically an internal system that we use to basically assess and grade different aspects of Google. And so on a weekly basis, we'll get like an email alert to basically like ask us to rank, like, how happy you are to work at Google, or do you feel like, leadership is, supporting you, and is there, like, literally today was just like one of the questions where is there too much like bureaucracy at work that prevents you from being able to advance your projects? And I mean, one, we're like, there definitely is like a high expectation for us to be able to fill it out. And I think we all should fill it out because our leaders do actually look at it and use that to make assessments around things that should fundamentally be shifted within the organization. And so I think it is like, I think it is a helpful barometer for the company. And it's also just our way as an individual employee to be able to sort of give our own feedback within the company. I think I also too just wanted to maybe go back on the point of purpose real quickly, if that's okay. And I think what everyone here is like totally correct in their own way. And I think from me, I think in most recent times, the way that I've been able to just like find purpose is just also realizing that the work that I do, well, may not necessarily.
Oh no.
Oh, no.
This
Oh
is going to be the
no,
greatest point ever.
I know. It
We
might be that moment.
hanging on.
As soon as Che comes back, we'll obviously give him the floor.
The
So while
purpose.
waiting for him to reconnect, Lee, was there anything else you want to say around the idea of purpose? Anything we haven't actually covered, Kelly, Erica?
I think in terms of purpose, and when we talk about purpose in psychology, we talk about meaningful work. And meaningful work is something that we know is a big predictor of employee engagement. And being engaged in our work is essentially the opposite psychological state of burnout. And we know that employee engagement is also a big predictor of performance. So as you were saying, I think it was Kelly, that meaningful work is also really good for business and it's really good for organizational life. But I worry sometimes, does anyone think we've over romanticized work?
So hold that thought. Does anyone think we've over romanticized work? But Che, you were in the middle of
Finish.
what the best points. So go on, please.
Oh my God! Like, was that me? Did
Yeah,
I cut off,
talk
or
to
did
you.
everyone
You
else?
disappeared.
Oh man, I don't know. It looks like it lost connection,
Oh man.
and I think I've kind of lost my train of thought. But I think where I was going with it was, I'm grateful for the work that I have at Google because it does give me the opportunity for me to um, allow me to like lean into my purpose. And I think that was something that I really found to be really clear this past year, like last year, which was being able to share my struggles, my journey, particularly within mental health, with a community like LinkedIn, with the people that I'm being able to connect with. And that has probably been the most therapeutic thing that has ever happened for me, and my sense of self and sort of rebuilding myself. But I also felt like I wouldn't have had maybe the courage to do that without having the security that I have at Google right now. But then on the flip side, I feel like I'm also trying to create security for myself outside of Google too. So it's definitely multifaceted or multidimensional, really. But um, I also look at my role there as an opportunity for me to be able to also experience the purpose that I want to be able to bring to the world outside of work.
Fabulous. Yeah, and what was the question? I've forgotten what the question was now. The second one we're about to
I
go
was
into.
well, exactly. I mean, you segued that beautifully, Che. As I was saying, there's this. We know that meaningful work is actually really good for organizational life and organizational performance as well. And it sounds as though Google is definitely an organization that is fostering that sense of meaning and purpose in your work while giving you, did you say, that kind of freedom and agency to find it in other communities. I guess my concern is with social media and the perception of millennials and Gen Z, and I'm a millennial and I've been called entitled before for wanting purpose in my work. Have we over romanticized it though? Have we gone too far? Or are our expectations too high? What do you think, Kelly?
Yeah, sometimes I just wanna clock in and clock out of work. Like, sometimes I just assisted a friend of mine on a cookbook shoot last week, and I was like, "This is great. I don't have to think about anything else after this. I am literally going and just helping and leaving, and there's no additional connection to it whatsoever." And there's something really empowering about just being able to go and do the thing and feel like you've accomplished something for the day and you're getting paid in return for it. And then so I think that that's one facet, and I think that that's also a great trajectory for a lot of people to exist that way all the time. They just wanna clock in and clock out, and then go and mountain bike or ice skate or whatever on the other side of it. Um, I think it's based on personality, honestly. Like, there are certain people who have their whole world intertwined with their work and what they do, and in that case, it is important to find that balance between what I'm doing is a very integral part of who I am and how I'm moving through the world. And so in that instance, I do think it's not over romanticized. But I think that it has gotten to a point where we talk about finding purpose in our work a lot more than we probably used to.
That push and pull is really hard, isn't it? Of having that meaning in our work, having the financial security. And as you were saying, Erica, that's something that hasn't always been reflected in the salaries when we went into work, all bright-eyed and bushy-tailed with our idea of having purpose and financial security. Do you think there's an expectation for some organizations that your identity is your work, is that organization? And I guess, what do those expectations and demands put on us as individuals in terms of coping with that?
I think it's really difficult to cope with that when most of the pathways, at least in this moment, it feels like that sense of stability is like a luxury good. It's not just something that comes with signing on the dotted line and showing up and doing your job. So those expectations in terms of identity become even bigger because you're being asked to not find purpose anywhere else. You're supposed to focus on this one thing, sometimes more than 8 hours a day. So if the purpose isn't happening there, and my sleeping hours in between getting up, showering, and driving back into the office, I don't have time for it there, why am I waking up every day? I think that's the situation it creates, where at least if there was a little bit of stability outside of those working hours. I mean, I think about my grandfather again. He was a purchasing manager at a cast iron company that made the Monopoly pieces. And he had time to customize like giant aquariums and create different scenes and do correspondence courses and ships in a bottle. And they went to a cottage during the summer. That stability piece, he didn't have to romanticize anything because the romance happened outside of 9 to 5.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can I pile onto that, or Kelly,
Please.
were you going to?
No, you go, and then maybe I'll have another idea on top of it.
Okay. I mean, I feel like I know this all too clear, and I think Google does a great job of instilling their culture, their values amongst their employees. And, I think for a long time, like I just looked at myself as like, I'm Che and I am a Googler. And that was kind of it, full stop. I mean, of course, there are other aspects of my life, but I've been at Google now for about 10 years. And, it was really like a large part of my identity. Like a lot of my friends are Googlers. Like it's just very interwoven into my life. And, when we experienced the mass layoffs, I think across tech in 2023, that was a massive like wake up call for me personally, where, I realized that um in all intents and purposes, like I am just a number out of 180,000 employees that work for the organization. And I had to sort of reevaluate where I saw myself in all of this. And it was honestly the biggest catalyst for me to sort of really find ways to not disassociate myself, but like um, find worth in my own value that wasn't tied to my job, to my title, to the company that I worked for. Um, and that has been an evolution of mine that I've been on a journey on now for the past few years. And I think LinkedIn has also just been a really amazing catalyst for that for me, where, I can show up, I can talk about Google to an extent, but a large part of what people are getting, like you're getting me and all the different dimensions and that I show up in the world. And so I just wanted to add that in there.
No,
Yeah, that's great.
absolutely. It's such a wake up call, isn't it? Things like this, whether it be the pandemic or layoffs. Kelly, how would you build on what Erica and Che have been saying?
First and foremost, I love Erica talking about her grandfather and the things he was doing outside of work. I was like, "Ships in a bottle? I wanna do that." Like, that sounds so cute and sweet and going to a cottage for the summer. Um, I think the thing that came up for me was the monetary component and how everything has gotten more expensive and how people are they're doing their regular job and then they're also doing a side hustle, sometimes not because they want to, but because they need to. And and also salaries have been going down in the last couple of years. There was that buildup it was like pre-pandemic where people were job jumping every couple of years and they were able to get like a 15 to 20% raise from one job to another. And that kind of stopped. I think that there's probably like 1 or 2% of people who can still do something like that, but it's a rarity. And so people's lifestyles kind of matched whatever money they were making. And so at that point, you get caught where you have to keep moving forward, making more money. I've got to keep jumping up this ladder. And I think one of the bigger conversations that we were touching on when we met before for this live was that we we can't keep going in the same direction that we have been if life and society is not continuing to move in that direction. So that's where we have to so I've been doing a lot of reevaluation within my own life of like, can I be less of a consumer? Can I spend less? Where do I want to be putting my money? What businesses do I want to be supporting? And so that's been a big pullback for me, is like, do I need all of these things that I felt like I needed, that society is telling me that I must have? And so that's kind of becoming more of my identity too, is this reevaluation of like what really matters to me as far as like what my happiness looks like.
I've got a quick question, but George, any comments or questions that you?
Really interesting statements and impactful ideas and personal perspectives about purpose and how that's enabled them to create impact. We've got an interesting one about layoffs. I think a lot of modern anxiety comes from working a 9 to 5 job where the norm is now regular layoffs multiple times a year. And there's also a lot to do with purpose in terms of recruitment and the romanticizing coming from employers who want you to have purpose-driven roles.
Fabulous.
Interesting, yeah.
I have a quick question, and I know we're flying through this time here, but quick question. I think is it OpenAI, Sam Altman, who's talking about universal basic income, where we all just AI does all the stuff and we just earn an amount, so we can go and put ships in bottles and make monopoly pieces. Out of interest, each of you do you think that would work? Is that the nirvana, or is that just where madness lies? Do you want me to name you so you don't interrupt each other?
I mean, I I think that there is some truth to that. I do think that that feels a little bit dystopian, though, in the sense. But listen, I don't think any of us have a crystal ball to know what the next 5, 10 plus years are going to look like. But I do know that AI is here, and we sort of like opened up Pandora's box, and the way that capitalism works, everyone's on the search for the next best thing. And so I do think that there will come a point where um, AI can do a large part of what you know um, all the folks in the room here can potentially do. And so I think as a society, we'll have to sort of rethink and reevaluate, like, what does it mean to be human? Like, what does it mean to have a job? And, I think that does give the opportunity for a sense of like a security blanket, like universal income, where it does give people the opportunity to be able to express their passions, because we've created a world in which machines can do the other things, maybe the things that we don't like to do, right? But that's just my take on it. I do think that there's something there, but I mean, it's so hard to tell.
Erica, dystopia or utopia?
I don't think it's an either or. I don't think we should wait for machines in order to introduce that sort of stability. And I think Jay called it a security blanket. I don't think people should always feel like they're on the edge. There should be a cushion there. We should be making sure people are taken care of so that they can make the smartest decisions possible about work and about how they're spending their time.
Excellent. And Kelly, you could make those ships in bottles.
Yeah. I am going to start doing that. No, I don't know. Maybe I will. I guess I'm kind of in that middle ground as well, where I'm doing a lot of observing. I'm sitting back and waiting and seeing kind of what happens before I adopt something wholeheartedly, because I really don't know what direction it's going to go in. And I think as long as people have their basic needs met, then it won't be super dystopian. But the concern is if AI were to take over a lot of jobs and then humans are not put in to replace anything, then that's going to cause a lot of concern. So I would like for certain things to be automated. But I also don't want to completely lose my ability to critical thinking or process. I think process is so important to be able to do yourself.
And it pulls in this whole it's a philosophical conversation as well, isn't it? You know, it's having purpose in our work and what is the purpose of work? And if we're
Yeah.
not working, you know, as we've known, what does that then look like in this new world with universal credit? It's an interesting one. I remember talking to somebody about it on a podcast who asked me about it, and I was like, I kind of see personality coming into here a bit. So if we look at like the personality of entrepreneurs and the personality of criminals, they're not that different. The only difference is context. Not. So I kind of see it maybe even going down some kind of, route like that. People will want to be creative, and if they don't have that outlet, they will find it. But yeah, who knows? Maybe we'll come back in 10 years' time and see what type of world we're living in. I want to get into some of the practical sides of this as well, because I know some of the people that are attending may well be thinking in a sort of similar way, rethinking their career, wanting a reset, wanting to change it up a little bit. Kelly, I want to come to you first because you went from corporate life to being a founder, a content creator. For anyone thinking about making that type of career transition, what do you think people might underestimate about that process?
The amount of internal growth that you're going to go through. I've had to contend with a lot of negative thought trains and a lot of things that required a lot of meditation and recalibrating, kind of questioning myself. When you go from having a really big brand attached to your name to not having it, it is harder to get people to care about what you're saying. So I think it's really being patient with yourself and patient with the process. And I would also say if you are leaping into something that you're not like, you don't have another like thing set up where you're going to another job or something where you have a paycheck, save a lot more money than you think you need. Because that part has been, I have felt fortunate to have the circumstance that I'm in, but a lot of that was lucky in a lot of ways. So I had saved money, but it wouldn't have been enough for the process that I've gone through in the last 2 years. So that is a big takeaway. Logistically speaking, that's a very important part of it.
I love how that feels like it's two sides of the same coin. There's a lot of introspection and reflection needed, but there's also, the practicalities of doing this transition. Again, we romanticize it a bit, can't we? But it's, as you say, it's having that runway is it's important. Erica, how about you? Because you're now as well building work in a way that suits what you want to do, what your ambitions are, what your purpose is. Is there anything that's been harder than you expected?
It's been as hard as I expected. I don't know. I feel like a lot of folks who are making a change right now, whether it's to work for themselves, something, to do something else, they're not just changing roles. They're actually facing like the dilemma of creating or seeking an opportunity that hasn't existed before. Before you could, if you wanted the new job, you would change the job and maybe get some new skills so that you could move forward, or keep the same skills, but just it was a different there were just two variables you were working with, and now we're all, whether or not we're admitting it, solving for an X that we don't even know what it looks or feels like. And it's a lot. It is as hard as I'm a creative, so I do that all the time. But for some people who maybe that isn't their day-to-day function, that's a lot. That's heavy when you're maybe an accountant and you're used to really certainty and clear answers. That's not what that process is. And I just want to give everybody who's trying to do it right now a lot of credit. We are all creating a new future right now, whether or not we signed up to do that.
Yeah, I think it feels like a lot at the minute that I didn't sign up for, to be honest. Here we are. Che, how about you? You said you went through this kind of, this reevaluation processes as well when we saw what happened in the tech industry in 2023. What have you learned? Is there anything that maybe surprised you as you were going through that reevaluation?
Yeah, I think for me, when I talked about like my identity my identity being so tied up to the company I worked for and my title, I think for a lot of us, like we kind of grew up with this idea that you need to sort of like rise to the top of to the top of the leadership chain. And, that's what success looks like for you in corporate. And I definitely was all in. I was all about that hustle culture of trying to get promoted. Like that was literally like, every few years, like, what do I need to do to get to the next title? And in many ways, like I realized like I was just losing out on the opportunity to enjoy my experiences at work because I was just so focused on trying to sort of get to the next level. And then finally, I got to that level, right? I got to the level of being able to have a team at Google, which is quite frankly really hard to do. A lot of Googlers are individual contributors. And so once you become a manager, like the stakes are that much higher. And, I got into that managerial role and I looked around and I was just like, I don't think this is what I want to be doing at all. And I think that took a lot of self-reflection. That took a lot of just like trying to understand like what is actually bringing me joy right now. And right now the work that I'm doing isn't doing that for me. And so, I had to have the courage to have those like open and honest conversations with my leaders around, you know, I know that this is the path that you wanted me to be on. And that was the path that I thought I wanted to be on. But actually, like I think I can provide much more impact doing something different. I can provide much more impact on being an individual contributor, both in the work that I'm doing, but then also how I show up outside of work as well. Like being able to have that mental headspace to be more leaned in as a dad, or to be able to build my personal brand outside of work as well, and to have community with friends. And so that's sort of like a lot of where like my reevaluation went to, like especially after the mass layoffs, and sort of trying to really optimize for joy for myself.
I'm really glad that you took us there, Chick, because that's exactly where I wanted to go next, is in terms of the leaders' roles within organizations. If, people in your team are quietly questioning their careers, what responsibility do you think leaders have in that moment? And what was your experience of you sharing that moment with your leaders?
Yeah, I was thankful that I got a lot of support, and a lot of understanding around, you know, what type of future I wanted to create for myself. And that may not always be the case for everyone, but I like at that time I felt really safe psychologically to be able to share where I was at in my life and what I felt like I needed to be able to thrive, to be the best version of myself, and to give the best version of myself to not only the company, but also just like all the other folks in my life too. And so that is also just like how I've tend to operate as well. Like I really do tend to operate with a sense of empathy and creating a safe space. I'm not a people manager anymore, but like I still create that for the folks that are around me where they can feel comfortable coming to me about things, um, whether it be big or small. And so I definitely encourage leaders to lean into that, because there's just so much stuff that's happening in the world, not only just in our day to day. And I think we really need compassionate leaders that can truly understand where their employees are coming from, and really set that example for them.
Kelly, I saw you nodding there vigorously. Obviously, you agree. But both you and Kelly and Erica, I have a question. What happens if the leader doesn't enjoy their job? If they're getting so much pressure as well, then how do you manage all of that pressure of like, well, I'm not, this job's difficult for me and I'm going to have to try and make work brilliant for all the people I work with. Anyone, you got any experience of that? Any thoughts on that? Sure.
Well, I just I was nodding furiously because I'm like, thank you for bringing up empathy and compassion, because that is something that is so overlooked because it's not data points, it's not tangible. But if you are a good manager, or you can look out for your team, obviously that means you're putting on your own oxygen mask first. But if you can look out for your team, you can change someone's life, honestly, being a good manager. And it's so important to be able to come with those skills. And so I'm so glad that you brought that up. I was like, yes, we need to be having more conversations around that part too. So what you're saying, Al, is basically if you're not in a good place yourself as a manager, how are you going to be able to support your team? I actually kind of went through something similar to that when I was at Red Bull. I had a couple of contractors who were working with me, and in California, the way that it works is there's an 18-month long contract, and then after someone hits their 18 months, they have to leave for 3 months and then come back. It's a terrible system. But I had one of my contractors leave, and then they didn't bring back a second contractor. And so I was going backwards and doing things that I had been doing. I was higher level and delegating. And then I ended up going back and doing like contracts and administrative work and all that stuff. And so I was feeling really frustrated for myself, but I tried to compartmentalize. I tried to say, okay, this person who's working with me is not me. And what can I do if I am in a situation, like I remember what it was like to be that contractor. I think it's a matter of empathy. It's tapping back into things that you remember about your own experience and doing the opposite of something that was negative for you. And that's the way that I was supporting in that circumstance.
Interesting. Erica, any thoughts?
I think we might be in a moment where people need to stop looking up for the answers and really start looking to each other. And with that, like what Jay's described, that leader might not even need to lead in that moment, but just hold the group together and make it safe for them to start imagining what else could be, which is a really risky thing to put new ideas out there and to feel safe doing it. I think that's what leaders need to do, because if employers want to solve all the problems, they would have done that by now. That's just not the moment we're in.
I wanna ask you another question about that, Erica, because we've talked about uncertainty, and you've mentioned uncertainty quite a lot as well. And every day there seems to be something else for us to be worried about and destabilize what our lives and what can look like. You mentioned there, looking around, looking to colleagues. Do you think there is an expectation on leaders to have the answers? And do you think that's where we're falling down a little bit, or leaders are putting as much pressure on themselves by thinking they need to have the answers in supporting people in times of uncertainty?
Yeah, we're trained to think that way from day one. There's a leader in the classroom telling us how things work. The structure has always been there, and it's really hard to retrain yourself to feel like you can be a leader in those groups, in those conversations, and just start asking questions of those around you. I think we opened this conversation, I mean, not today, but when we were emailing about it, like, what do we want this to be? How could it be? And we're afraid, everyone's afraid to say, I'm figuring it out right now. But if we were talking about it together, it would take the pressure, it would retrain that expectation, it would do so many of the things that we're talking about here now.
And I guess opening up to Kelly and Che, is there anything you've seen leaders do in moments of uncertainty that you're like, please stop, that's not helping?
Che, do you have one?
Oh, I was gonna go someplace totally different. I thought it was gonna be like, please, yes, we want more of that.
Open a new door.
Yeah. Is that okay?
Of course, of course.
Well, I mean, just to build on what Erica was saying, I feel like vulnerability is something that is just so important as a leader, and I think that that's just like it's incredibly hard to do, and I get that, but I think creating a space where you just acknowledge that, like, listen, I don't have all the answers for any of this. Like, we're in unprecedented times right now. But what I do have is the ability to be compassionate, to like, you have my ear, like, we can collaborate, we can figure what this looks like together. I think that's what we need more of, is leaders who are willing to be vulnerable, who are willing to acknowledge where they have their gaps, and allowing space and opportunities for people within your team to help try to bridge that if needed. And I think that, to me, that goes a long way.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just community aspect in general, like within work and beyond work, that is the way that we're all going to be able to find commonalities and common ground and support each other. Just even in like micro communities, but within work, um, no one knows everything. No one knows what they're doing at this point. We're all navigating without a GPS right now. And so I think there's a strength in being able to say, being vulnerable, saying something like, I have no idea how to navigate this, so let's do it together. Let's figure out how I can lift you, if you're the manager, how I can lift you up and we can come together to bring our strengths into a place that moves us forward.
I want to gauge your thoughts on how temporary or permanent this is in terms of us reevaluating and rethinking what work means to us, how we want it to sit in our lives. It's been a heck of a 5 years. There's been, as you say, the global pandemic, there's wars, there's cost of living crisis. It's one thing after another. Is all of this just a temporary reaction to all of that? When things stabilize, will this reevaluation stop or slow down? Or do you think it really is the signs of a deeper shift in how people are thinking about their careers? Erica, if I could start with you.
It's not going to slow down for me, and I've chosen that path. I do think as a student of history, you've got the pendulum. It will swing back to a place where it doesn't feel as chaotic. But I do think even when we're on the other end of that swing, what we think of as stable, we've really got to divorce ourselves from the idea of stable that we grew up with. So even that moment will feel like another reset for folks.
Yeah. Che, I don't know if you want to go.
I don't know. I was like +1 to what Erica just said.
Plus
I don't know if
one.
I could. I don't know if I could add more to that. That was really well said.
Well, I
Um,
think beautifully said. Well, how
um,
about you in terms of Che and Kelly? Erica said, her shift is gonna
yeah,
continue. Do you see it a similar
yeah.
thing?
I would agree with that. I think, at least for me personally, like, I've realized I'm at a fundamental, like, shift in my life. Like, I'm gonna be 40 next month, and yeah, dirty 40. And, you know, I definitely thought, like, I had this vision of what 40 was gonna look like maybe 20 years ago. And now approaching that, like, it feels so different. Like, I am a different version of myself, and what I want is completely different than what I wanted 20 years ago. And the world around me has obviously changed, from what it was 20 years ago as well. And so, um, there's this there is this influencer or content creator on LinkedIn. Her name is Jade Powell. I'm gonna shout her out, but I love the energy that she brings to the platform, and her North Star that she says is her KPI that she's optimizing towards is joy. And that is mine. And that's what I'm optimizing my life against. And, you know, I, and it's sort of going to be that consistent sort of that consistent driver for me, no matter what else is happening around in the world. Like, I'm gonna be moving myself forward. I'm moving myself forward under the North Star of just like, how do I optimize more joy in my life? And that's really it.
I love that. More joy.
Yeah, I'm on that train too, Che. I actually, when I turned 40, and I'm like, how old am I now? 42. When I turned 40, I just lose track after a while. Um, that is when my husband and I had the big talk. It was actually the weekend of my 40th birthday. We had the big talk about, like, do you want to think about leaving your job? And so 6 months after that, I left Red Bull. And I just feel like it's undeniable at this point for us to have to figure out how to root ourselves somehow. Like, if everything around us feels chaotic and the ground is constantly moving, like, we have to go and play in the dirt and touch grass and go out for walks with our dogs and do things, play with your kid, like, do things that make you feel purposeful beyond work. Here we go, all the way back around to the beginning of the conversation. But, and I love that you shouted out Jade because she's one of my favorite creators on LinkedIn as well. But yeah, the joy component is so integral to everything right now. And it's something that you can choose to exist in. And it's something that no matter what, no one can take away from you if you decide that you don't want them to take it from you.
Kelly, can I ask you just those, like, maybe the 3 or 4 months after you made the decision you're going to leave Red Bull, and then the 6 months when you did leave, if someone's in the same situation, they're going, yeah, look, I'm going to leave my job. I'm going to pull the trigger. I'm leaving it. What does it feel like, and to actually go through that decision and actually wake up on that day and go, I'm not going to work today?
That part was super empowering. I felt like I was calling the shots in my own life in a way that I hadn't. I, like, gave myself permission to make that decision because
Hell
normally
yeah. Hell yeah.
normally I'm waiting for someone else to give me permission for most of my life. And so that felt really freeing. And then for a while afterwards, it still felt freeing. But then the questions came up because I wasn't moving to something quote unquote certain. The questions started coming up after that. And this journey of almost 2 years has been really interesting. And that's another conversation for another day. But it's been really hard, but also really, really important in my whole process. But yeah, the day that I was leaving, I was like, yes, I'm gonna have all this free time.
Well, Erica, you just obviously loved that comment there. But do you think it's important that you have to have something to leave to, or can you literally just go, right, I'm off. I'll just work it out as I go along?
I think sometimes you just have to stop. I've learned that lesson that, like, yes, figuring it out from that point on is hard, but sometimes to continue in the same situation would be harder and worse. And I know that sounds privileged and impractical, and I don't care. I think staying in some situations can kill you.
Yeah.
Che, if you were to leave Google, and you just said you were a Googler, you actually described yourself as a Googler. So that's like, it's kind of like implanted in you a little bit, isn't it? How would
I
you?
mean, yeah, like I didn't make that up. That's like that's a known thing. That's how much like the culture is just so so prevalent.
Yeah, it's I think I don't know whether you were alluding to this before, Kelly, but you sort of said like the questions, and I've done that. I've changed careers quite a few times. People go, so what are you going to do now? Or someone says, what do you do? And you kind of like freeze. You go, I don't actually know because I don't have that job title anymore.
Yeah. My ego has definitely been worked out a lot in the last couple of years, being like, okay, I don't really have much to show for myself right now, but that's another part where I have realized I've had to dislodge that identity from what I do. And like, why do I always have to be doing something? Why do I always have to be producing? I don't. I can just show up and exist sometimes. And I also, it was the same thing, Che, at Red Bull. Like, that's a lot of people's identities. Certain people will go and become a Wings team member, the people who hand out Red Bulls in college, and then they just stay at Red Bull for like 12, 15 years and they know nothing else. Um, so it's like deeply rooted in people's identity. And that was one thing I noticed. And I was like, I don't really want to be like that. So
It's interesting that you were reflecting on turning 40, Jay, and and Kelly, I'm also in the 40 club. I'm 41. My actual reevaluation came when I was 35. And it's a landmark birthday when you have it end with a 0 or a 5. And what's really interesting is in the research, psychology research, we found that this is a very common phenomenon for people to completely reevaluate, to the point where in organizations, the year after the CEO has a landmark birthday, revenue is more than likely to drop by up to 20% because of changes they want to make. So if anyone is listening, watching, who is about to approach a landmark birthday and is having these feelings, it's perfectly normal. And it's a good time to start thinking about it. Georgia, can we go to you, please? Do we have any questions from people here that we can maybe answer before we head off?
We have a few, but I'm going to name two that are really, really interesting, especially to myself. This one in particular is for Shay. For anyone who is in corporate, what changes in workplace policies have been seen since the pandemic?
Yeah, that's a good one. So at Google, um, we like everyone else, like we sort of shifted to like a hybrid working model. So right now we allow employees the opportunity to work 2 days from home and then 3 days in the office. And yes, they are tracking this. They are totally tracking this. But what I found is that there's been more of an appreciation for flexibility within the workspace. And I think with the pandemic, it kind of showed us that, like, hey, like we're operating as whole humans that have so many different aspects of our lives that are happening. And sometimes the normal 9 to 5 doesn't necessarily like work for you to be able to, to optimize your life with childcare and kid activities and things like that. And so there's definitely an acknowledgement of that within the workplace for sure. One other thing, and this is just like maybe like a Google privilege thing as well, is they also noticed that a lot of our talent in the US, obviously they live abroad. And so they've given us the opportunity to have like 5 weeks where you can work from anywhere. And so that's not counted as part of like your requirement to be in the office, which is also really nice as well. So I've personally just seen just within Google specifically, just like more of an attention around just workplace flexibility that's more a part of our policies than they were before the pandemic.
Mm. It's a nice perk.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love
Oh,
that.
that's fantastic. Yeah, thank you for that. And just one more question that I definitely want to get in before the end is, what should we do in terms of AI proofing ourselves? Are there any AI courses that you know of? Okay, and that's for everybody, I assume.
That feels like two separate questions, right? Like,
Yeah.
because like learning AI doesn't necessarily AI proof you. It just makes you more congruent with AI. And so I would say, like, work on your human dynamics skills. Get really good at bringing people together, facilitating those moments that AI still can't solve for. That's the power of being human.
Second that.
Yeah.
And also, I
Love
think
that.
sorry, Jay.
No, I was agreeing to that as well.
I think also we've seen the rise of, I think it was called Quick GPT, wasn't it, for a little while? People were just like going against ChatGPT and quitting them because of the thing they did with, I'm not going to go into it, but the thing they did. And we are going to get to the point, I think, where it's human first. You are going to go, and Kelly, you were saying before, you're choosing where you're spending your money. So people are going to be choosing where they spend the money because it is human first. We don't use AI, or nothing is produced by AI. So it will, if we can just strap in for a little bit, then I think we will come almost, not full circle, we'll certainly come to a point where people will be like, I'm not an AI. I don't like anything from AI. So I will make sure I will actively choose companies that don't use AI. But I'm not sure that necessarily answers the question. Georgie, do you think that we've answered the question, or do you think there's still a nuance in there? Are you muted, Georgia?
I'm so sorry. I do actually think there is. I think that's been answered. Yeah, I genuinely do.
Brilliant. Is there one more question we could squeeze in before we head off, or have we covered most of them?
Oh, there is. There was one from just wiggling myself to the top. There was an interesting one about have the guests started some AI businesses or any other side hustle in order to safeguard themselves against the AI threats?
Good question. Has anybody?
I have not started an AI business, but I use AI in editing because it just pops out some little hooks for me, but that's the only thing.
In my career, I've always more or less worked for myself and eaten what I kill. And for me, the safeguard is just having different irons in different fires at all times.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what we were thinking of as side hustles, that's kind of the name of the game now. Everybody's looking to have a little something just in case this market crumbles or that job suddenly ends. But no AI business over here. I'm not that smart.
Yeah, none for me
Just
either, but I think I echoed what Erica just said. It is, I guess, like trying to future-proof yourself by creating opportunities for yourself outside of what your normal 9 to 5 is, and that's what I'm trying to do, quite frankly. And yeah, I'm just on that journey. I'm on that journey there too.
All of that goes back to the relationships you have with other humans. Like,
Yeah.
just in general, that's where that's where the meat is. Unless you're vegan, but
Yeah.
Love
Yeah.
protein.
that's where
That's where
the
the connection
chickpeas
is.
are. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I think what AI is great at is you ask a question, they'll go, "You're absolutely right," and it's
Yeah.
they go, "Yeah, what a great idea! We should go and you should definitely go and live in the garage and eat cheese all day. What a great idea! Here are 16 different way cheeses you could try." Whereas if you actually do the opposite and you go, "No, I'm going to push back on this. I'm going to say, I think I'll be real honest with you. That's a rubbish idea. That is a terrible idea. You're the opposite of AI, and then you become valuable because you become known in your organization as someone who's just going to actually be anti-AI. You're going to tell you exactly what you think. Now, that's very careful with that because you don't want to be that person, but you also, if you just think about what AI can't do, and obviously there's obvious stuff like they can't come in and fix your air conditioner, or they can't come in. But what if in terms of your work, there's going to be lots of stuff that AI says it can do, but it's not going to do it anywhere near as well as a human's going to do because the human's going to think about it. It's going to think about the consequences around other people. And like you said there, Kelly, all the relationships you've got. God, is that not going to AI proof us just by having really quite deep and great relationship with others?
Yep.
Well,
I hope so. I hope so. Yeah, I think, to answer from our perspective about Truth Lies and Work, we do use AI and automations. We help with our editing, our sound quality. We're playing with it to take off some repetitive administrative-based tasks. If you are looking for specific courses, I have seen an organization called Ivy Jobs. We did have their founders on the podcast probably about 12 months ago. They offer lots of AI courses. AI education is the kind of their main thing. I haven't done any of them, so I can't endorse them necessarily, but I know they are there. So check out ivy.jobs if you are looking for something practical in terms of AI skill development.
And also, I know that Google's got lots of stuff, skills with Google.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Yeah, Anthropic's got one. And also, using one of Google's, if you know the person who invented Notebook LM, please tell them I want to fly over there and kiss them on the mouth. I love it. But what's cool about that is that you can say, right, I want to learn how to use Gemini, Google's LLM better. So you can literally go into Notebook AI, upload hundreds of videos and then use it as your own. I mean, I'm not looking at you, Joe, because you know exactly how it works. But for anyone listening, it basically becomes your own sort of like your own LLM that's going to teach you how to use ChatGPT or Anthropic or Gemini or other LLMs are available.
Yeah, and could have a whole LinkedIn live just about that, couldn't we? Maybe we should.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. First of all, to our incredible panelists, Che, Erica, and Kelly, and for giving us an extra 10 minutes of your time as well. Thank you to everybody who attended live and everybody who will rewatch this afterwards. If there are any questions in the comments we haven't got round to, we're all obsessed with LinkedIn. The four of us, not Al much.
Yeah, we're on there.
The comments and we'll spend some time answering any questions that we didn't get around to. But yeah, thank you so much, everybody. Thank you to Georgia as well, expertly managing that in terms of the comments and questions. We will see you again on the 1st of April. We have another LinkedIn Live coming up for you. The details of that will be out very soon. But in the meantime, thank you, everybody.
Yeah, thank you, guys.
Thank you.
I love talking to you guys.
Yeah, thank
Yeah,
you.
this was fun. Thank you.
Let's make this like a weekly thing.
Yeah, just once a week. We got this.
Yeah, we could do this.
Amazing. It's a deal. We've got it on tape. So go and follow everyone who's been part of this, and we will see you guys soon. Anything else to add, Leanne?
Nothing else to add, Al.
Right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
That's it for this one. Thank you so much for listening. If you would like to connect with any of our panelists, you'll find all of their details in the show notes. If you'd like to be a future guest on one of our LinkedIn Lives, we would love to hear from you. Drop us an email at podcast@truthliesandwork.com. And if you enjoyed this, please do leave us a review. It genuinely helps more people find the show. See you soon.